So talk to me a bit. There were some interesting statistics, as I mentioned to you earlier, that I found fascinating about from the Canada Helps 2020 Giving report. And they talk about how, for one thing, donations from mobile users is outpacing donations from desktop users. So what does that sort of mean for us? What does that say to the church?
Yeah, so over the last couple of years now, we've seen Canada Helps and online giving jump every year. So more people are giving online. But what we're also finding is that more of our traffic on Canada Helps, so in terms of people visiting the site and people completing donations, more of it is happening on a mobile device. So that means, iPhones, your Samsungs, your iPads, anything, that kind of traffic is more than a desktop. So what that means is more and more people are making donations and giving using their phone rather than just going on a desktop computer. And what that really means for charities and churches across Canada is that it's more and more important not only to have a presence online, but to make sure that your website, your donation options are mobile optimized. So people have that option to give on a mobile device.
Yeah, exactly. So they have the freedom to choose. Isn't that partly, again, about being available when people are feeling generous? Because we've often seen the donation moment as being one moment, when the hymn is being sung on Sunday, but actually by making yourself available on your website on mobile devices, you're giving people more opportunities to express their generosity.
Exactly. So often we've seen, with churches in Canada, you have your regular tithers, whether weekly or monthly, and they can do that online, but online giving and having that option really allows for that spontaneous gift. And when they're making that donation, members of your congregation or community, that maybe they're attending this service, they can also type in a quick message to you and your church using online giving methods. So it really allows for that spontaneous gift for sure.
And, it's not that there's anything wrong with using checks for giving. It's just more of a generational thing, isn't it? Some generations just don't write checks any longer. So when we talk about wanting to allow young people to be involved in the church, I think often we aren't allowing them to be involved in that really fundamental way, which is to support the ministry of the church.
Well, exactly. And I'm like, for myself, I'm 27, so I'm a millennial. I'm a prime example. When I go to church and the giving basket, comes around, I've never written a check in my life. Probably won't. I don't carry cash on me. So the first thing that I do is I just pull up my phone and I go on the website and make my gift. So if your church doesn't have that option, right, and I've been to services where they maybe didn't have that option, right, then I can't give right away, and I'll want to do it after the service or when I go home that day, but then I might forget because I'm pulled in another direction or my mind's gone somewhere else. So it allows for that spontaneous gift right during the service.
Yeah, so you're really making that possible for people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Another couple of things I noticed, just a couple of trends, which I think the church should really take note of. There were two trends in terms of how people want to give or what they want to give to. Yeah. And one was donations to charities that work with Indigenous peoples. Seems to be a growing area. And the other is donations to charities working on international issues are growing. And then, of course, also the environment.
Yes.
And all of those things are things that the church is involved in. And I'm wondering how we could sort of harness our involvement in those kind of issues around engaging people to be involved, physically with those things and also with their generosity.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that is that's part of a larger trend that we're noticing on Canada Helps in terms of donors wanting to give to causes, not necessarily just the charity or the church. Like my dad's a prime example. So he gives to our local church every year, and he just writes a check, right? And that kind of donor, we're finding more and more is going away. Especially the younger generation, when they give, they want to know, where does if I give you $100 today, where is that going? How are you using this money? They're not as, we say the term, blindly committed. So what we're seeing is when charities and faith-based organizations, when they're tying their giving to causes, so when they're saying, if you give $100 today, this will do X, Y, Z. Or if you decide to support us monthly, this is where your money will go. We're seeing that when they're tying that to causes, we're seeing a jump in the revenue that they're having from donations. So Indigenous populations, that's a big jump. And environment, obviously there's been, climate strikes and marches and things like that within the last few months. So we're seeing an uptake in charities that are supporting those causes.
Yeah, those are all things churches across the board of all denominations are really interested in. But often I don't think we don't frame our not our pitch, but we don't really frame our invitation to generosity around those issues. Often it's more like we're putting on a service for you, please support us, we got to keep the roof on, support us. But I just think these are issues we care deeply about and are engaged in. And
yeah, exactly. And anytime you're able to tie that, tie the giving into those issues, you're going to see you're getting more of that emotional pull from donors, and you should see an uptake. So it's a good point for sure.
Yeah. So once again, good morning. This is the Beyond the Plate Show. My guest is Lucas Froese from Canada Helps, and we're looking at encouraging digital giving and how we can really make that work as faith communities. And this is Neil Mancor from Diocese of Montreal. We do welcome your comments and questions. I am monitoring the Facebook feed, so if you have any comments for Lucas, please throw them there in the comment section, and we'll work with those. But I want to move on to the first thing we want to talk about, which is about trends in digital giving, helping churches get set up on their websites. Can you tell me a bit more, just take us through that, and how really easy it is for churches to transition towards that?
Yeah, so like you said, so we're seeing an uptake in giving online. More and more people are choosing to give that way. And also more and more of traffic online is coming from a mobile device. So that means your smartphones, iPads, from that mobile traffic. So for churches, it's actually a lot easier and a lot less scarier than you may think, or maybe that perception is. Basically, it's all about on your website, making sure that you've got a button on your website that says donate, give, support, whatever kind of language that you want to use. And clicking, so as a donor, when they're clicking on that link, they're going straight to a form where they can make a donation to you. Okay, so it's really making sure that's easier. And it's going to be easier for you, and it's going to be easier for a donor. So as a donor, when I give online, I will immediately get my tax receipt. So you don't have to issue that receipt. For you as a church, I know there might be some bookkeepers or treasurers tuning in. When you get that donation, you can receive a notification letting you know that somebody gave, and all you have to do is thank them, because the tax receipt's issued, and then steward them along, how you usually go about it with your church.
Yeah, and I think that's really one of the great things. People don't realize there's a lot of work that goes on in all of that, and some of that is done when you do that online. As you say, you automatically can send out a thank you when someone makes a donation, isn't that right? And it can be personalized. Exactly.
So you can set it up where there's an automatic thank you. So as soon as somebody gives, they'll get an automatic thank you. But you can also, once they've made that donation, you have their email, their contact info. So you can, however you want to do it, if you want to mail thank you cards or just write email thank yous, that thank you communication piece at the end is very, very important. And something that I think, as churches and faith-based organizations, we don't do that as well as we should.
It's crucial, isn't it? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially at this time when we're not meeting physically and you have supporters that are giving to you, that's your only way of communicating with them now. So it's extra important for sure.
Yes, and a thank you that just acknowledges your gift is just so meaningful. I know I really find it so helpful. I got a wonderful thank you from Christ Church Cathedral here in Montreal. And that's because I work in the office tower there by the cathedral, and I was helping them with their new Eucharists. So it wasn't even a monetary thing,
Right.
but I was doing that. And they thanked me for that. They sent me a really nice personal thank you letter as part of a thank you campaign. And, it's interesting because it made me think, oh, gosh, well, maybe I should start doing the new Eucharists again. And,
Right.
and I think it's the same thing with giving. It's sort of a reminder, like, oh, yeah, I did give. And I think it must make people a little bit more open to giving. Again, it's a positive thing to do, to acknowledge the gift, whether it's financial or otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's. I mean, we don't give to get thank yous, but it's obviously nice to receive that, and it makes you feel special, and it makes you feel like you want to keep supporting. So it's a crucial piece for sure.
And you can also then, so there's websites, but you can also use your Facebook as well to give, right? If you have a Canada Helps site.
Exactly, yeah. So the main thing, obviously, is making sure that you have an online presence so you can give. Mm-hmm. But you can use, with Canada Helps, you have access to donation forms, and you can actually add them to Facebook. Twitter, Instagram maybe might not be as popular for a lot of you, but for Facebook, you can add it so when they're coming on your Facebook page, they have an option to give. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's just a really great example. As I was saying, St. Barnabas, St. Lambert, Ryan Perron keeps doing that. And it seems to me that's partly about it's being where people are, which is a different way of thinking about giving. We tend to think of people coming to us, but digital is also about going to where they are.
Exactly. And the good thing about social, and we see this often, I see just regular charities doing a great job of it, and churches are getting better at it. On social, it's all about content and creating stuff, and you always, you're posting pictures, you're posting events where people are engaged. But often, for me, I'll go on a Facebook page and a church is running an awesome event, or they're just telling me about some great missions work. And I'm reading it and I'm super inspired, but then I'm like, I want to give, but I don't know where to go. Right. Yeah. So you've just inspired me, and I just, I love what's going on, but I don't have a call to action.
Right.
Is what we call here at Canada Helps a call to action. So having that link there, having that button there, now I can read it and I can support it right away. Yeah,
that's great. And really just harness that spontaneous generosity that's right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think one of the great things about, for example, a lot of our churches do have, access to their Canada Helps website. I know every charity in the country has one.
Yep.
That you can activate, really. And a lot of them have, and some of them have, updated their little blurb that they're able to put in there. So you can put in a blurb, you can put in a picture, you can put in your logo. It's all there. It's quite easy to do, right?
Yeah, it's really easy to do. Essentially, with Canada Helps, you're able to sign up for free, and then you're given an account, and you can update your profile. But what you're also able to do is create a donation form and add that to your website or social media as well. So yeah, it's an account. It's really it's like a cut and paste sort of template. It's designed to be easy for you to use, and it's designed to be easier for your congregation to give.
And just to keep that fresh, I was checking through some of the ones for our diocese, and one of the churches out in the Laurentians, this is quite a small church actually, but they had updated theirs to say, we're not meeting right now, but this is what we are doing. And I thought, wow, that was really great thinking that someone went in there and updated their Canada Helps page to let us know what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And you're also able to, there's a lot of different customizable features. What you're also able to do is add a link a checkmark box to say the donor can consent to your newsletters or emails. So at this time, if you're sending out monthly newsletters, or if that's something that you generally do or you're starting to do now, the donor can check yes, I want to be part of your communications. And now they've consented, and you can add them to that. So other great ways to communicate aside from just making the donation too.
That's fantastic. So there's a lot of options out there, a lot of easy things that you can do. So as I said, welcome everyone who's hopping on. We do welcome your questions and comments. If you have any, just throw them in the comment section there. We'll use them. Good morning, Francie. Nice to see you. And hope you're doing really well. Talk to me about some best practices, though, broadly speaking, in digital giving for churches.
Yeah.
I think we're all kind of learning this.
Yeah.
What should we be doing?
Yeah, so maybe I should have started with this, but I'll kind of give you a bit of the backstory with Canada Helps for those of you that maybe don't know. So Canada Helps is a registered charity, and we've been around for 20 years. And we actually were founded in a church. So in '99, if you can kind of place yourself back in the .com boom, 3 university students, 2 from Waterloo and 1 from Queens, were home after their first semester of university, and they were sitting in a church pew, and the basket came around, and sort of the light bulb moment, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? So they founded Canada Helps. So we started in church, and now 20 years later. So we've kind of come a long way. The CanadaHelps.org website, every registered charity in Canada is on our website. So a donor can go and search for any organization and make a donation. But within the last couple of years, what we've kind of shifted towards is for charities and churches like yourselves on how to optimize on your website. So giving is made easier for you. So what that means is a lot of you have your own website, and the number one thing is to make sure that it's easy for donors to give. So what that means really is adding a donate button. So it can be donate, it can be give, support, above the fold of the page, and it's like bright, accented color, so it's different from your website or different from the other sort of colors on your site. So now, if I'm part of your congregation, I want to make a donation to you, I find your website, and within literally 5 seconds, I can see it. It says give, and all I do is I click that give, and it takes me now to a donation form that can actually be embedded on your website, and I can make a donation to you right there. Okay, so the other big thing, like we had mentioned earlier, was making sure that it's mobile optimized. So making sure that your website can be accessed through a smartphone or an iPad, because that's where more and more traffic and donations is going to be coming from.
As I say, I mean, it isn't really saying that, envelopes are not good. We really appreciate our faithful envelope givers, but there is a generation coming along who this is how they operate. All their money is digital. Yeah,
and especially now, in light of this pandemic going on, everybody's doing things online. So like I live in downtown Toronto. I'm ordering food on my phone. I'm getting groceries. I'm using Uber. So everybody's doing, it's this pandemic has kind of accelerated that trend maybe, and more giving is going to be coming from an online device. And again, not to take away, PAR and e-transfers and writing checks, none of those things, but it's another avenue that you can take advantage of.
And actually, you can have all of them, can't you?
Exactly. Yeah, you can have all of them for sure.
But it doesn't cost you anything to get your Canada Helps website set up.
No. So it's a free registration. You just basically go sign up, and you can add that donation form and giving button on your site, and you're good to go.
Yeah. So you can add that. It can be a really important piece in your arsenal. One of the churches, a number of churches do have their donate buttons up. I think St. George of St. Anne de Bellevue has their Canada Helps right on the landing page of their website, and it's in French and English, so you have both options.
Exactly, and that's important to know too. So they can be in English and in French.
Yeah, but I think that's very organized to have it in both languages here in the Quebec context.
For sure, sure.
So well done, St. George of St. Anne de Bellevue. Talk to me a bit about, let's just sort of switch and think about this from the point of view of the donor and the donor journey. So I think that's really important to think about.
Yeah. So when we think about online giving, and basically online and the internet in general, I mean, it's designed to be easy. and easier. So that means easier for donors to give, easier for them to get connected to your church, and also easier for you as a church. So not issuing tax receipts, and an easier way to receive money. So in terms of the donor journey, basically, like, I can even use myself as an example. Say I'm sitting at church and the giving basket comes around. Like I said, I'm a millennial. I've never written a check. I don't carry cash anymore. So what I do is I simply go on my phone. I pull up my phone. I find the church's website. And again, it's optimized. I can see on my phone the donate button. I click it. It takes me probably 30 seconds. I put my name, my email, my credit card info, and I click donate. And as soon as that's done, as a donor, I receive my tax receipt immediately by email. So, and as a church, the donation goes directly to you. So I know whoever's set up with the Canada Helps account, maybe it's a pastor, maybe it's a bookkeeper, you can set it so you get a notification. So you can say, oh, here's Lucas Froese, he just gave us $20, right? And then immediately you can send me a thank you message right away, or whenever you want to do those communications. As a donor, I've got my email or my email tax receipt. And then come the new year, when it's tax time, I have all my receipts for the whole year, and I'm good to go. I don't have to wait for you, or you have to send me a manual tax receipt. I'm already good to go. And again, on your end, you're saying thank you to the donor, and every Thursday, so weekly, your donations are deposited straight into your church's account.
So kind of easy.
Yes.
What about, I want to talk about sort of making the pitch in the first place, where people are asking a lot of questions right now, and maybe you could just tell me what other churches are doing too. When we don't pass the plate, which we really can't physically pass the plate right now, but we have a lot of online services going on. How do we sort of navigate through, inviting people's generosity, making that possible in a Zoom service or a Facebook Live service? Something like this, a Zoom to Facebook Live service like we're doing now, kind of.
Yeah, for sure. And
what are people doing?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The biggest piece that I found, going to church and obviously working with churches now, is you just have to ask and you have to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And I think a big piece, even before this pandemic, was not talking about it. When we, obviously at Canada Helps, we work with all charities, so environmental, food banks, humane societies. What they do really well is they ask, and they're not afraid to talk about it and what donations mean to them. Mm-hmm. So same as a church, when you're on Zoom, it's such a great time to talk about. I mean, obviously we're talking about navigating life, in light of what's going on and God's grace. But it's such a great time to talk about what donations mean right now for your church, and how critical of a time it is, and how we can't meet physically. So I think it's mostly about engaging with your congregation, talking about giving. And when you're on Zoom, people are already online, so they can go on your website and give online, or can see the different options on ways they can support you. So I think it's having the conversation.
Yeah, having the conversation and just making that possible. Some people were thinking, well, maybe we could, play some music at the end of the service, have some reflective music that's being played, and that's an opportunity for people to go and make those donations then.
Yeah, no, that's also a great idea. Yeah, for sure. And again, it's more about, actually, what I should say is through Canada Helps, when COVID initially started, so I think it was middle of March, we saw, I think when kind of the stocks crashed and things started closing, we saw a dip in giving. But since then, we've seen a big uptake. So monthly donors through Canada Helps are up like 60%. A lot of giving online is going up. One, we're surprised, and it's amazing to be Canadian, the generosity of Canadians. But what we've also seen is that people want to support. And people that are able to want to support. So talking about it and giving them the option to give, and I think you'll be surprised as we were, that Canadians want to give. and they want to support your church.
Absolutely. And I think people really do want to. And then one of the questions they do have is, how can we do that? What are the ways we can do that? How can you make that possible for us?
Well, exactly. And then obviously now, one of those ways is online giving, but it's giving the option. So, I think Canada Post is still ticking along a little bit. So, checks can still come in. You can still use PAR, right? It's not about getting rid of those options. This is just another avenue for you, for people to give. And they can give however they prefer to do that.
Yeah, you could have all of them, really. Some people are working with the e-transfers as well.
Mm-hmm.
E-transfers seems to be just a security issue. You just need to have checks and balances in place to make sure that the money goes into the correct account.
Yeah, e-transfer, it's great. It's another great option, but security is one. And then also the issuance of the tax receipt too.
Right,
So making sure that they're getting that and you're organized on that front. But that's another great option. And then another question that I've gotten in the last couple months is, talking about, like my church has a bit of an older demographic. We want to do online giving, and we don't know, like, how do we transition them to online givers right now? That's a question that I've gotten a lot. And a surprising stat that we found on Canada Helps, it is not in the giving report. We found that kind of later. For online donations through Canada Helps, when we talk about conversion rate, so conversion rate meaning I'm going on and I'm making a donation and I finish that donation, I complete it. The highest, the demographic that has the highest conversion rate is the 65 plus age demographic.
Interesting.
Which caught me off guard, which caught a lot of people here at Canada Helps off guard when our data team kind of pulled that. So often when we're talking about online giving, it's the older demographic that is completing those transactions. And we often think of millennials and Generation Z now, and like online, how do we engage them? But it kind of shows like those committed donors, like they're committed to you and they want to give and they will complete that transaction, maybe with a little bit of training, but they'll do that and they want to give to you. So it was an eye-opening stat for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. Well, we're all having to transfer, and it's funny how we've all just had to learn all this stuff really fast. And people are.
Yeah.
I mean, look at us doing a Zoom to Facebook Live, conversation. We wouldn't have thought that was possible a few weeks ago, and we're doing it. We're making it work.
No, exactly. It's everybody's learning quick, and everybody's had to kind of be agile and I know a lot of you guys are having to do those online Zoom services. So I'm sure that's been an adjustment as well.
Well, it's been huge. There's been a lot of experimentation going on, and everyone's getting sort of better and better at it, actually. It's interesting. All of us were a little bit rough and ready when we started doing those services.
Yeah.
And we've been kind of learning as we go along. And, kind of, do you do a Zoom service? Do you do a Facebook Live service? A combination. And I always say I like Facebook Live services because they feel more Anglican to me in a way. Because I can sort of slip in, make my presence known if I wish, and slip out again. The other hand, with Zoom, of course, you get a chance to really have some fellowship with people, which is great.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, I got a nice comment from Christopher Bell. He says, I find that once people are informed, fear subsides.
Yes.
About digital giving.
Yes, definitely. And that's a great comment, and that's very true. That's very true.
I think so.
Yeah, and I even look at my parents, for example. My parents were for online shopping. I know my mom never did online shopping.
Yeah.
And now, like within the last couple of years, she did it once, she did it again, and all of a sudden she's like, okay, like this, I can do this. Like they're not gonna. I'm not going to lose my money or get scammed right away. So yeah, for sure. And also talking about the security piece as well with Canada Helps, that is a huge piece. So when you're communicating with your congregations, if you're using online giving, security is a big piece in making sure that your donation forms are secure for those online transactions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember the first time I bought airline tickets online. it was terrifying. And you did have these questions about, wow, how is this secure? We had a lot of questions about that. And now, we're all our own travel agents.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're all, I ordered a book online yesterday. I order my food online. I'm giving online. So
Everything.
and it's not going to go away. It's here to stay, I think. So
I'm at the point of buying some boots online, actually. And but I'm just not sure, how can you size shoes online, but they have little descriptions of it. They say, well, this is a wide shoe, this is narrow, so, use this
Right.
size, use that size. I think it's kind of the same for the church in a way, once people sort of understand digital giving. When you think about it, like, there are costs involved in envelopes in terms of, you have to pay for the envelopes, checks cost, every check costs you whatever, $1.
Yeah.
And there's also the time involved. And I think that one of the aspects of digital giving people don't realize is it does free up your staffing, because as I say, if the receipting is going out automatically and the church is getting the information, that's just a lot easier on the people of the church. Like, your envelope secretary doesn't have to have this panicky thing at the every year.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And it's also important to note too that what will inevitably happen when you're setting up online giving, people will give, and about 6 months down the road, you're going to get a phone call, and they're going to say, I gave $100 to you 8 months ago. I don't know where my tax receipt is, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that, when you're using Canada Helps, they simply phone us. So if that happens, you can email us, the donor can email us, and we have their information, so we can resend their tax receipt. And we can pull the history of their giving and making sure they've got all that at that time. So it really relieves you of that burden of, in case they lose it or they're contacting you, because now all of that is with Canada Helps.
Yeah.
So that's a big piece of it as well.
We got a comment from Christopher Bell. He's in Brossard. Members of my congregation have vowed to watch these webinars. These sessions are changing the way people think. Thank you. Thank you for that, Christopher. We're really glad that we hope this is really practically helpful for everybody, and gives you some good practical ideas about how to move into all of this.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's a bit nerve-wracking maybe when you haven't done it before. It can be a bit scary. But once you kind of get into it, trust me, it's easy to set up, and I think you'll enjoy it once that process is running. It'll be a lot easier for you.
Yeah. Tim Weeb from Knowlton says, can you talk more about communicating the security piece?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. So essentially, when you set up online giving, when you're using Canada Helps, what you're able to do is add that donation form to your website, and you can use that on Facebook or any ways you're communicating. And on the donation form, when you start using, you'll notice on the top right there's actually a little lock symbol. And when you hover over the lock symbol, it'll actually say that this donation form is the highest level of PCL compliance, meaning that we use the highest level here in Canada for secure online transactions. So you can talk, and that's in terms of communicating that with your donors. That's more of just having the conversation. If they're inquiring about it, letting them know that this donation form is secure. And another big piece is that you are also able to secure your own website. And when you're on your website, when you're looking at the URL, so at the top where it says like www.yourchurch.com or .org, when you're looking up there, on the left-hand side, there'll be another lock symbol. If you have that lock symbol, it means that your website is secure. If you don't, it will say not secure. And now is a great time to get your websites secure. Now, to set up online giving, you don't need to have your website secure, because with Canada Helps, the donation form itself is secure. So you don't need it. But if you want your website to be the most secure, be mobile optimized, then you'll want to be able to get that secured. But in terms of communicating, yeah, it's letting your congregation, letting your community, letting people that are giving know that the donation form itself is secure. And if they have questions, they can contact Canada Helps as well.
Yeah, and like, as I said, it's a bit like everything else, buying airline tickets, buying things on Amazon.ca. I mean, the security level is just so much higher than it used to be.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
and this is just a natural part of how people operate now, really.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
getting. I often think, as I said, it's thinking about that younger generation and who are young adults now and are making choices about church and participation in church. And so now is the time to be really providing options for them to support the churches they want to go to.
Exactly, and it's a great time now while we're not physically meeting to get organized and educated on it. So making sure, like what we talked about, that your website's all set up, and it's a great time to communicate. You're communicating to your congregation why it's important to give and how they can now give online in different ways. So it's an opportunity to commute and make sure not only your church knows how to set up online giving, but your congregation knows that's an option and how to do it, and different ways they can give.
Yeah, and so I think, Sunday by Sunday when we're online, it's just an opportunity. Like, I think maybe we just have to shift that towards the end of the online service if we're doing an online service.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, we really appreciate your support. These are ways that you could give. We appreciate that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's letting them know that it's there. And even, whenever we kind of get back to normal, whatever the new normal is, I know some churches, when you go to the service, they'll hand me a pamphlet. They'll hand out a pamphlet of, what's going on at the service. And then there's that time where the offering's coming around. Simply on there, here's the link to go online if you want to give online. Or if you're emailing, if you're sending like a mass email, or you're doing a direct mail, a newsletter, something like that, they can read it and they're getting inspired and says, hey, if you want to give online, here's where you go. Or if you want to, here's the envelope for your credit card information. Or just making sure, like I said before, Canada Helps, we call it a call to action. So making sure that on your website, any kind of communication on a Zoom call, there's a call to action. So the donor knows exactly where they need to go to make a gift.
Absolutely. And as I said at the very beginning, I think it's really so important for us as well to realize that people give to a cause, not a budget, and to how we express we're inviting generosity. And the church has just so many really aspirational and inspirational things we're doing. Telling those stories and putting those stories out there is so important across the board.
Exactly. And even with online giving, you're able to add preset donation amounts. So on your donation form, you can say $50, $100, $150, let's say 3 amounts. And you can tie those, like you said, to causes or impact statements. So if I gave $50 today, it might say, your $50 will support XYZ, or this will support a missions trip. Or anytime you can tie a donation to something impactful, a cause, something tangible even, is better.
Yeah, I mean, one of the churches out in the Laurentians, again, they really punch above their weight out there in the Laurentians. They do a lot of stuff. But I was looking at their site, and they talk about this on their Canada Helps page, as well as on their own little website and everything else, that they operate a breakfast program. They've had to shift that because of COVID. They've updated all their information, but they let you know what's going on. And I just think, that's something that's really inspirational. It's so much more than just saying, we put on a service, come support us. They're saying, look, this is what we're doing in the community.
Yeah.
And what's more exciting than a breakfast program? I mean, food, children, supporting people, it's beautiful. And it's something I think a lot of people would want to really get in behind.
Exactly. That's an awesome example. Yeah. And even, if they're running a breakfast program and somebody wants to give $50, another example, you can even say, like, if you $50 will help feed 10 children, 10 people, or, even creating those tangible things will go a long, long way.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just a lot of stories like that in all our churches, actually, that we can really use.
Yeah.
I think how we make that pitch is so important.
For sure.
Welcome, Crystal, from the Washington State. We're really glad you're here. And so this has been the Beyond the Plate show, financial generation in COVID. 19. And Lucas Froese, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciated this conversation.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, do you have a last piece of advice for us as we try to navigate this new world?
Yeah, I think making sure you have an online giving option is one. And yeah, so making sure you have online giving option one. And then the other thing would just be don't be afraid to talk about donations and money. And I think sometimes where, you know, as faith-based organizations, we don't want to feel like we're soliciting or we're like being too pushy. But it's important, and especially at this time. And it doesn't have to be making asks all the time, but it's communication. So when somebody does give, that you're thanking them. That's really important. And making sure in any kind of communication, there's that call to action. So they know the last thing that you want is somebody that's really inspired and wants to give, but doesn't know how or didn't know where to go. That's the last thing you want. So communication and making sure that you're set up and good to go.
And then thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
So thank you to everybody for your comments and questions and your presence today.